What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. It was certainly a weekend online in gaming with a ton of back and forth around Microsoft's big announcement. And yes, Halo is going to PlayStation. I have a bunch of details that we can go over, as well as some of the reactions that are happening online. We'll take a look at all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about some unlisted videos that popped up for the Switch 2 that is giving us another look at what should be a big release for Nintendo, but they've been pretty quiet about the whole thing so far. And we'll also be going over some of those Pokemon Legends ZA sales, as we did get some official numbers from Nintendo, and well, it certainly shows what Nintendo's big holiday game really is to pair with their new system. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Matt Booty, who is one of the top executives there at Xbox, and he's been making the rounds along with Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer, discussing kind of the strategy of Microsoft currently with Xbox and their brand. And he had to sit down with New York Times and talked about really the competition that they're looking at. And no, it's not PlayStation. We can see this over on VGC. This from Matt Booty, who says, "Our biggest competition isn't another console. We are competing more and more with everything from TikTok to movies." So the idea of the console war, Xbox versus PlayStation for Microsoft, I guess now, them looking at the big picture of just entertainment as a whole, that's like old news. This is small potatoes. They're fighting against, oh wow, how are we going to pull attention away from some of these social media platforms and video platforms, or even just going out to the movies, although even that is kind of on the decline now, or just doing things other than playing video games at this point. And with the newer generation coming up, that is something I'm sure all these companies thinking 10 years ahead right now are trying to figure out. But that's Microsoft's biggest thing right now. They're looking outside of just game platforms, consoles, as that's become very, very obvious, and trying to go up against some big competition with something like TikTok, because there's one thing for sure, people love to doom scroll. Also, we did get a release date for Mouse PI for Hire, which is a very cool and unique looking first-person shooter. You can see some of the new trailer here. This was for the release date that they did reveal after delaying it out of 2025, although we're towards the end of October. There's not much room left at this point if you're going to make an announcement just maybe a week or two before. So they've opted to take some extra time with the game, and now it's coming out in March, that being March 19th, 2026. So again, this game really stood out because, of course, the art style itself being that old-time black and white cartoon style, but with the first-person shooter aesthetic, still being pretty violent and everything. It looks really cool, and that's the biggest part. I mean, that's half the battle, is just making your game look unique in the first place so that it stands out, and this certainly does. So I'm still going to be keeping an eye on this one as we get into 2026. Just going to have to circle March on the calendar for it. Oh, and we do have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment coming out next week, November 6th, but it appears you can play it a bit early as different demo stations are popping up. You can see this one as an example, and I started to see these show up all over X the other day, as I guess places like Walmart, for example, has these kiosks that get updated pretty consistently, and now there is a playable demo for Age of Imprisonment. So if you've been interested in even trying it out, there you go. You just got to take a trip out to, I guess, one of these big box retailer stores with the Switch 2 kiosk, and it should be there, provided that, I guess, Nintendo rep has come around and done the update for it. This game, though, I will admit, is sneaking up on me a bit. I kind of forgot that it's that close, that we'll see reviews, I guess, go live beginning of next week, and then the game comes out, Thursday on the 6th? So I'll be picking it up, and the thing with Age of Calamity, it was cool, but it had a lot of performance issues where I was like, it's kind of sketchy to play on the Switch 1. Fortunately, though, with the Switch 2, so far from what we've seen with Age of Imprisonment, and even some of the videos at these different demo kiosks, looks like it's running much smoother. So that is a plus, and I'll be checking it out when it comes out in the first week of November. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Microsoft and Xbox and Halo Studios' big announcement that happened later Friday afternoon. Well, they were trying to make it sync up and work to where they could announce it during their Halo championships, but apparently the final thing there went into overtime or something, and they ran over, and then all this stuff started to show up on the Xbox storefront and on social media. So they said, whatever, throw it out there. Embargoes lifted, and there was a ton of coverage for something called Halo Campaign Evolved. Now, I saw the store page go up, and I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. The Halo campaign remake for Halo 1 Combat Evolved that we had been hearing so much about through the rumor mill, worst kept secret it felt like going into this event. But there it was. And then the trailer popped up, and then the gameplay popped up, and then I saw interviews even with Mystic Ryan, PlayStation YouTube personality, seemed to get an interview with Microsoft Xbox Halo Studio. So that was weird. Talk about Halo going to PlayStation being weird. Here's Mystic Ryan interviewing Xbox. It's all over the place right now, but we can see some of the trailer here, and then we'll also take a look at some of the gameplay that they revealed, which is about 13 minutes or so of the Silent Cartographer level. There's a legendary level that many Halo fans out there, I'm sure, don't need much reminding about. But we'll start from the top here with some of the features for it. It is coming out in 2026, and yes, it is going to PlayStation. It'll be releasing on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and on PC. No mention so far for Nintendo, but that could be maybe a late port down the road or something as we hear about the dev kit stuff. And we do see Microsoft making more and more of a push with things like Indiana Jones next year. And we'll see if maybe Starfield or something can make the move as well. But they do have new content set up for Halo Campaign Evolved. There'll be 3 new missions. These follow Sergeant Johnson and Master Chief. This is set before the campaign, sort of a little prequel there, leading into, of course, the well-known campaign for Halo Combat Evolved. They do have enhanced cinematics that they showed off during the presentation, especially with that gameplay. We were jumping in and out of some of those already pre-rendered sort of cinematics. They do have sprint in the game. This is a big talking point right now. However, it is worth pointing out, you can just turn it off, and it doesn't look like, at least from the Silent Cartographer level, that they've done much to have to compensate for sprint, as in, if you just want it off, you turn it off and it should play very, very close to the original game. Still though, you see sprint, you see Master Chief running with the hands back and forth in the air. It sets some people off online. The HUD can also be customized, so it does seem like Halo Studios realized, okay, there are going to be some people who just want to play like the old school Halo setup. You can get most of the way there, I'd say. Aim down sights for all weapons, so that's going to be interesting to see just about across the board for everything, to where, yeah, you can just aim down a sight of a shotgun, anything really. So interesting stuff there. Remastered soundtrack and a fully rebuilt sound design. The thing with that, though, is the weapons seem a little muted in their sound. I wouldn't mind seeing them turning it up a bit, the bass and everything, just should be a bit more punchy. And there are more weapons in this game than were in the original, so it seems like they're trying to set everything up canonically with the technology and stuff across all the different Halos. So the energy sword is usable, battle rifle, needle rifle, and others that they didn't outright name here. You can also hijack vehicles. That was shown as part of the gameplay, with an elite jumping onto a Warthog and pulling one of the Marines out of there. The AI can drive you around. That wasn't introduced until Halo 2. And the Warthog has 4 seats. Why is that, you might be asking? Well, the game does have 4-player online co-op, which I think is awesome, because back in the day, you would just play through with a friend, so just had 2-player like local split screen co-op. Here though, you can jump in with 3 friends, and it's cross-platform, so you can have PlayStation playing with Xbox, playing with PC. That's awesome to hear. But if you still just want to go through the game, like back in the day with split screen, you can do so. It has 2-player local split screen. We don't get many games like that anymore, certainly not many first-person shooters. So recently we had Borderlands 4 do it, which was awesome. Now we see, with Halo Campaign Evolved still leaning into that old school split screen action that we've come to expect even from Halo. Again, the footage shown here, you can check it out. I've linked down below 13 minutes of Silent Cartographer. And from what I've seen so far, I think it does look good, but I'm also not judging it based on from the angle of competitive PvP, because this is just a PvE or just co-op online or single player experience. So having sprint in there, I'm like, yeah, if I don't want to use it, I don't have to. So that, along with some of the other changes, to me, it's not as big of a deal. But you do have Halo purists online who are not happy with it. Some people ask the question, do Halo fans hate Halo more than anyone? Sometimes, yeah, but also we're still, I think, a year out from this game releasing. I do believe they're going to set it up to where it comes out really in November, around the 25th anniversary for the Xbox and Halo, so there would be time to change some stuff in the game based on feedback. So I'd recommend giving some of your honest, criticism for it, but just do it in the correct way. Like social media can be filtered through pretty quickly when it looks like craziness just being thrown around. So, just point out some of the things you wouldn't mind seeing changed, and see if Halo Studios ends up taking that in and making some alterations and stuff as we get into next year. But the reactions for Halo on PlayStation have been something else. I did an entire video around that because, yeah, it does seem like that was the last domino to fall for Xbox. And with Matt Booty's comments, they're not even concerned about PlayStation. They're kind of seeing them more as just as an ally at this point in what they're trying to do, being apparently this 30% accountability margin. You can reach that by just releasing games on more platforms and reaching more people. And I'm telling you now, this is it's going to sell more on PlayStation. It just will. I mean, there's Game Pass on Xbox, so that already it makes it pretty clear. But also, this is a big deal, and people on PlayStation, I think, will turn out to support Halo making the jump to the unthinkable platform back in the day. You would have never expected this, and that's what you're seeing a lot online right now. You see Halo purists yelling about the way it looks currently in Sprint and stuff. You have PlayStation fans who are excited to play Halo, and then you have Xbox fans just confused, bewildered, unsure of where they go from here. It's a mess online. But one thing's for sure, Halo, it's back in the conversation. And for me, I mean, that's a win right there. Next up, let's talk about an update for Pokemon Legends ZA when it comes to sales numbers. Last time on Newswave, we talked about the Japan sales, and they were high. They were higher than Arceus at that time when you launch a line and line up the first week of sales. But now we have just full-on sales results for the first week from the Pokemon Company themselves, and this was released in a PDF. We have it translated here. The Pokemon Company announced that Pokemon Legends ZA released simultaneously worldwide on October 16th, 2025 for Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch. It has achieved 5.8 million units sold worldwide in its first week. According to Nintendo's internal figures, including digital downloads, approximately half of all sales were on Switch 2. That's important to note because that means that, well, you see the install size right now that's been building for the Switch 2. There are probably many people who bought the Switch 2, yes, for Pokemon Legends ZA, and it was worth it to them to spend the extra $10 for a $70 game, which, look, Pokemon fans are already used to spending a lot of money on Pokemon. $70 for the game is probably a drop in the bucket for all the cards and plush and merchandise and money they've dumped into things like Pokemon Go. It really is a small ask at that point. Even if you throw the system in, they probably realize, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy Gen 10 and all the other Pokemon stuff coming to it in the future anyway. But that is kind of the point of Pokemon Legends ZA. Yes, it's on the Switch 1, but this is like Nintendo's big holiday game. This is what they're using to push the Switch 2, along with a lot of the games they've already released, Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and more. But you can't deny Pokemon. Like, it's going to do numbers. And I know that's a lot of discourse online around this game, but I think even most people who were arguing, yelling about some of the stuff in the game, specifically the flat buildings and the graphics and some of the other animation, other work to it, I mean, you look at it and go, yeah, it's Pokemon. What are you going to do? It's going to sell. It's technically sold 700,000 copies less than Arceus, but I also think it's probably going to end up outselling Arceus when it's all said and done because it has an entire holiday season in front of it, and I think it's going to be the big game that gets attached to the Switch 2, brand new system from Nintendo, as they work through the next 2 months, November and December, then probably some in January after people who just got a Switch 2 look around for what they want to buy for it, right? So I think Legends ZA, probably going to keep rolling along. It's Pokemon. It's going to sell. But Gen 10, that's the thing I'm really curious about right now. How will that look? And is the Pokemon Company really ready to make that jump to next gen if it truly is exclusive for the Switch 2? Next up, let's talk about some unlisted videos that were discovered for the Switch 2 that seem to be advertising what I think should be a bigger focus for Nintendo right now, but kind of quiet for it currently, and that's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So we can see this over on Nintendo Life, where they say 2 new unlisted Switch 2 lifestyle commercials for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond have been spotted on Nintendo's official YouTube page. They're titled Power Up Your Holidays, so we'll seemingly be seeing them in the lead up to the Christmas season. Although these new trailers are only around 16 seconds each and spend a lot of time focused on the player, they apparently include some spoilers about Samus's new adventure, and that is true. I'm not going to necessarily show the spoilers here. Although, look, it's going to be advertising. It's going to be live before the game comes out anyway. And it's small snippets here and there of the game. Seems to show what we believe to be boss battles. And I mean, it looks good. They also advertise the 120 FPS right there at the top as they're going through it. But it is interesting with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, been kind of quiet around this game. And people have been bringing up the fact that the trailers have just been so-so for this. And that's one of the reasons I do believe, and it'd be crazy if this didn't happen, that Nintendo would have some sort of dedicated direct for it leading into its release at the beginning of December. And I say that because we've had a Super Mario movie full length worth of Kirby Air Riders direct at this point. So you have to do at least, I think, 20 minutes. Come on, for Metroid Prime 4. I feel like there's still a lot about that game that we don't know, and it's coming out in a couple of, in what, a month and a half now? Not even a month and a couple weeks. So it seems obvious. And I see these unlisted trailers, like, okay, they're using Metroid Prime 4 in the marketing for the holidays because while Pokémon is still going to be big, it's bundled with the Switch 2, Metroid Prime 4 is the last release they have before Christmas. So they're going to have that front and center, I'm sure, with many places, and it should work. I think it should really work well in the US as sort of this first-person shooter adventure game. We know how it is in the US with things like Call of Duty and stuff, so this at least being technically sound, really, 4K 60 or 1080 120 with the performance mode, it should line up to sell well in the US, and yeah, you'd have some marketing around it. So we'll see when these trailers go live. Hopefully I don't wait too long for a direct of some kind. I know Kirby Air Riders is kind of getting, it's like right up against it almost, because Kirby Air Riders, then it's all the Thanksgiving, Black Friday stuff, and then you come out the other side of that, and Metroid Prime 4 is the next week. So it does become kind of difficult to figure out where you would even have that direct and kind of thread the needle on it, but maybe they'll just do it before Kirby Air Riders, as we've seen enough of that game. I think most people who are going to buy it have already, they're already convinced on it. Now let's turn our sights to Metroid Prime 4, because that is a game and a franchise that could use that marketing push. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about EA. We know that they are going private after the deal set up. It seems like it's going to be going through, but we did hear some whispers around the idea of AI playing a big role after they go private, most likely to accelerate development. But there are always concerns about AI filling in for human developers and just taking their jobs and positions at some of these larger studios. Well, we had an announcement from EA as they are indeed partnering with a company that specializes in generative AI. This we can see over on EA's site, as they did put out a press release and announcement for it, saying EA is excited to announce a partnership with Stability AI to co-develop transformative AI models, tools, and workflows that empower our artists, designers, and developers to reimagine how content is built. A global leader in generative technology, Stability's AI's work is revolutionizing visual media. With humans at the center of storytelling, we're evolving how we work so that AI becomes a trusted ally, supporting faster iteration, expanding creative possibilities, accelerating workflows, and allowing more time to focus on what matters most, building world-class games and experiences that entertain massive online communities. It can draft, generate, and analyze, but it can't imagine, empathize, or dream. That's the work of EA's extraordinary artists, designers, developers, storytellers, and innovators. Simply put, this partnership will help empower our creatives to do what they do best. So half that statement is certainly for the developers at EA now, kind of like, hey guys, don't worry. All right, don't worry that the AI we're setting up and developing here isn't here to take your job yet. But no, it's so here. That is, of course, the concern is that AI comes in and is super convenient, works really well to a degree, and then the executives go, man, we can make this game with like 50% less of our workforce. Let's try that. So that is the thing right now that people are worried about just overall for AI entering the workforce outright, is mass layoffs, like mass unemployment. But then you start hearing it here with EA and the way they're talking about it. Look, here's what's probably going to happen with a lot of these big publishers, and they're already working on this. AI is going to be used by, I think, just about all of them because it's that competitive free market space. And if one company is able to figure it out and all of a sudden they are rifling off games every 2 years, big games, you go, hold on a minute, we're behind the curve on this one. It still takes us 6 or 7 years. They're getting these games out really fast. So what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of these AI models be trained internally. And we talk about how each of these studio or these big publishers may have a proprietary engine that they use. Snowdrop, as an example, with Ubisoft, right? We talked about that. Frostbite at EA. Instead, they'll have like proprietary AI models that work internally with these developers and with the engines. So I think that's kind of the path we're going down right now. For the most part, you shouldn't notice this stuff. And if not, they probably won't even tell you about it. I'm actually a little surprised EA even made this announcement other than to try to alleviate concerns with developers internally. And then also the Stability AI company, I'm sure, wanted them to make that announcement so that they could have that, that nice legit partnership there online that they can point to in a press release with them working with EA. It's going to be some interesting times over the next couple of years with gaming and AI, I think, becoming closer and closer. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if you're buying Halo Campaign Evolved, which platform are you getting it on? Yeah, PS5, 53%, PC, 28%, Xbox is 19%. Here's the thing though. Xbox, Game Pass exists, so I do think many people who are on Game Pass obviously will just download it and play it that way. I am curious about the physical copy for the PlayStation 5. Still a little sketchy right now on how this works, because Ninja Gaiden 4 comes out, everything on the disc. Here comes Oblivion Remastered, and that is larger than the disc itself. I understand it's like 120 something gigabytes, I believe, but they put 300 megabytes on the disc and you download the rest. So I'm not sure where Halo Campaign Evolved is going to fit in. I'd like to think that's less than 100 gigabytes, so they opt to use the 100 gigabyte Blu-ray disc on the PlayStation 5, and then I absolutely will be buying it there because, I gotta get Halo physically with the PlayStation 5 header on it and everything, and Master Chief, right? I gotta add it to the collection because it is a moment in history. Longtime Halo fans, I'm sure, will agree with me on that. And then we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Sick Puppy, who says, I'm not a Pokemon fan anymore. Has Pokemon shirt on. Well, first of all, I said not as big of a Pokemon fan now as I was back then, and it's impossible to go back to being that big of a Pokemon fan. I'm talking late 90s, early 2000s. Think of the chaos and the madness that was breaking out around that time when Pokemon first came over. Red and blue broke onto the scene, then yellow. Yellow was a big deal. Then gold and silver and crystal. It was insane back then. So for me, like the Pokemon, I know there's like 1,000 some odd Pokemon right now. I still look back on those original 250 or 251 as the ones that I most relate to. So I don't want to show up and be like, oh, I'm a big Pokemon fan, guys. I know Charizard. Like that. I don't want to show up and say, oh yeah, I know all the Pokemon. I'm like a big Pokemon fan. Nah, I'm still that old Pokemon fan. And I understand that the franchise, it's just kind of left me behind a bit with how things have gone and sort of the path they've taken. And then I see the game pop up and I'm like, yeah, I would have probably loved that if I was 10 or 11. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen back then, I'm playing on the Game Boy. This is crazy. But, you get a little older and you start realizing a lot of the flaws and stuff. And then I understand Pokemon, you get older, it's not necessarily for me specifically anymore. That's what I mean when I say I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan. I still enjoy the gameplay loop and the ideas around it, as I still will at times, believe it or not, play like Fire Red or even the original Red or Blue, because I have both of them. It's fun to sit down and play them from time to time, mostly because the old sprites are still hilarious looking compared to what we have now, and it's just fun to go through that nostalgia trip from time to time. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more about the whole thing with Xbox and how that was kind of it for them with Halo making the jump to PlayStation. I did an entire longer video around that whole situation. I'll leave it right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.